Hi guys. In this video, we'll take a look at intros and outros and how you can edit them to fit your style as a DJ. When you start on a mashup and you have your audio in front of you, it's a great opportunity to edit your intro to a more desirable length. So why would you do this? Given that you're taking music from all sorts of different places, you might sometimes find that the intros and outros change standards quite a bit. For instance, more underground styles like tech house or extended mixes from the 90s are more likely to utilize an intro of 32 bars or more, equating to over a minute of music. On the other hand, more commercial or fast-paced styles, such as subgenres of electro, can use intros as short as 8 or 16 bars, particularly in styles where the tracks are shorter and the DJ will be turning over tracks much more quickly. As dance music audiences get more and more used to fast-paced sets, DJs find that they have to mix between songs quickly, so intros are getting shorter all the time. Often, shortening your intros is a little easier. It's more difficult when you want to stretch things out. If you're extending a 16-bar intro to be a 32-bar intro, you don't want to give the audience 8 bars of low energy followed by 24 bars of higher energy. With some tracks or some sections in those tracks, it might sound fine just to chop out 8 bars, but in other sections it might not. This jump is barely noticeable, whilst this jump is quite noticeable. Listen closely to the elements within the production. If the track uses building effects like snare rolls and white noise rises to build to the end of their intro, it's going to sound strange when you repeat that 8-bar section over and over. The audience will feel like the track is about to drop in, and then suddenly it'll go back to a smaller energy and build up all over again. You're going to have to use your ears constantly to make sure you don't create any jarring surprises for the audience. Whether you're extending or reducing the intro by 8 bars, a lot of the time you'll have to merge 2 8-bar sections together in order to create a bridge between the first and the second. To do this, you can perform a fade. Let's see what this looks like when we want to skip an 8-bar section, but cutting it out would be too jarring for the audience. We'll do this by selecting 16 bars of audio and splitting it into 2 different clips, performing a gradual fade so that over the course of 8 bars in the session, the audio will fade from the first clip to the second, effectively covering 16 bars of the track's original build, but only having it occur in the space of 8 bars. The audience won't notice that we've done a fade. To make sure this works perfectly, we need to zoom right in and make sure all of our beats match up exactly. This is hugely important because if they don't match up sample for sample, the result will be a washy, flanging effect as the 2 almost identical pieces of audio play ever so slightly out of sync. This is why you can't use warped audio or the peaks will drift around and you'll hear flanging and flamming. If your 2 8-bar sections are slightly out of sync, hold the Alt button on Windows or the Command button on Mac to temporarily bypass snapping the grid and allow you to freely drag the clip around on the arrangement page. Next, we'll use automation to set up our fade. Activate the mixer and track volume automation lanes on both tracks. During this intro section, if only one clip is playing at a time, you want it to play at 100% of its natural volume, or 0 dB on the volume automation point. When there are 2 clips of the same song playing at once, you need to bring one or both of them down in volume, otherwise the elements common to both clips, usually the drums, will play back twice as loud. Try to have one of the audio tracks playing a few decibels below 0, or settle for a compromise and have both audio tracks playing around -2 below. If one of the clips in a section doesn't have as many drums in it, usually at the very end of the intro, you can allow more of it in. As always, use your ears. You want to listen for a good balance between the 2 audio streams, but also listen for any uncomfortable drops or boosts in volume. The aim is to be so smooth with your fade that the audience doesn't know 8 bars have even been bypassed. Alternately, if you hear any squashing and distortion, then it means that you've got too much of each stream coming through at the same time, so alter your automation to make it more comfortable. See if you can notice 8 bars being skipped on this intro. probably noticed that the energy dipped a little bit in the middle, so I had to add a little bit more volume in from one of the tracks. It's important to listen through as you make the fade because different tracks will respond differently depending on the types of drums or instruments that they use. When editing an intro like this, it's important to make sure that any important moment, such as a vocal or instrument being dropped in at the end, is given full attention by the time it gets to that point. That means you want to finish your fade before the moment happens. If you wanted to actually add 8 bars to this track, you could do that by duplicating one of the sets of 8 and using a fade to actually send the listener back 8 bars, so that by the time they reach the end of the 8 bars, they've got back to the beginning of it. I'll show you what I mean. Of course, the same theory can be applied to outros as well. Because there's not much gradual change over this 8 bars, we can simply chop it and repeat it without having to do any fades at all. So that's it for intros. The next section of videos will all be about transitions and making things sound smooth while making mashups. We'll talk about things like transitions, high-pass filtering, treating vocals, linking sections together, added elements, and tempo changes. See you in the next section.